What is up, YouTube world? It's been a minute again, y'all. I haven't meant it to be a minute, but it's been a minute. So forgive my dark lighting. But I got a few things that's happening, some updates I'm doing in my space. So anyway, what's up, y'all? Y'all ready for this new year? Y'all ready for the new year? Y'all think it's gonna be a new year, a new you, huh? I think that's funny. I talked about that on my Instagram real briefly. Everyone who thinks it's gonna be a new year, new you, like stop it. I'm all for like goal setting and all of that, but I think we gotta know somewhere along the line that when the clock strikes 12, it is not about to create a whole new you. You've got to still do the work. So that's what's up. So it's been a minute since I've been before y'all, and it's late and it's New Year's and it's all of those things, or New Year's Eve rather. And it's all those things. So I'm not even going to be on here long, but I just want to kind of like update y'all and tell y'all a couple of things. And I had something on my heart about leadership and just kind of how I'm hoping that we walk into 2020. So, I'm gonna just throw it out here. Peace, peace, peace. What's up, sis? So let me try and get through these like announcements kind of quickly, because y'all know we just get bogged down with like all the things, but I really want to make sure that I put out here kind of some of the stuff that's going on and all of that. So y'all might have noticed that a few months ago, we changed the logo to CTN, and then like nothing else changed. We didn't say nothing. And I'm gonna tell you that the majority of that was because I didn't know what I was doing, and I was afraid if I like changed it back that I'd mess up something. So it's just been saying CTN, and like nobody even knows what that is, or nobody even knows what that means, right? So what's up, y'all? What's up? What is up? So nobody knows what that means, and I wanted to kind of talk about that for a minute. So we're actually going to do like an official launch, but CTN means changing the narrative, and so we have launched this media platform. The website is almost done. Obviously, we have the YouTube page. We do have an Instagram, and I'm gonna drop all those links and stuff. I'm gonna go back and like change the description and then drop a bunch of links and things like that in there. So please, please, please subscribe and then share this information, because I am no longer going to be the only person showing my face on this channel. So I'm really kind of excited about this. I want y'all to support Black-owned media. And I think it's important that we control our own narrative. I think it's important that we recognize that we are often not in control of our narrative. And so a lot of things get spun. And part of what I'm getting ready to talk about tonight is, around how our leadership really, in my opinion, how our leadership really kind of continues to feed into this negative narrative in a way that I feel like is not necessarily healthy. So here's what you're not going to get. We're not going to do all the gossip. Now, not to say we're not going to talk about relevant or hot topics or things that are like current and trending and things of that sort, but we're not going to sit here and do like celebrity gossip. I don't feel like that adds a single thing of value to our community, right? But what we are going to do is we're going to start talking about our businesses. We're going to start talking about our economic status. We're going to start talking about how we build. We're going to start talking about our value system and community and health and wellness and current events and the good stuff that's going on. So, it's important for us to really be dialed in and in tune to a network that is going to be dedicated to really bringing, forth our own narrative in our own way. Now, I'm also going to tell you that I'm not going to necessarily, I'm not going to be the primary person who is spearheading all of the content that is coming on. So y'all are going to start seeing me again very regularly on Tuesdays and Thursdays. However, my partner Shay J is going to come in because she is BBI's new creative director. And so we're getting ready to do like an official introduction of her. But so she's going to also come on. She was actually supposed to come on with me already, but then she had an injury. So we're kind of like allowing her to nurse herself back to health, because that's important. But Shay J is going to come on, and so I can introduce you to her, and you're going to start seeing her face regularly, and then we'll start to have some other contributors that will be on regularly. So y'all just know like what CTN is, what we're doing, how you can support us being able to continue to bring on content contributors who can come in and start producing and creating the type of content that is important to us. And I put that question out. I ask people, like, what is it that you want to hear? And it's interesting because people say that they want to hear the positive stuff and the wealth building stuff and, the education and the this and the that. But then, what we really get attracted to is all of the drama, right? Like all of the drama. And so, I find that a little bit discouraging, but I understand it because the reality of it is that oftentimes we are more addicted to entertainment than we are to education. And so sometimes we have to figure out a way that we're going to make education kind of a little bit more sexy or whatever, so that we can start getting dialed into those things that are actually going to help move us forward. So there's that. It's CTN, changing the narrative media. And so that is going to be out. And there's going to be more information about that, but you're going to continue to see a few things as we just kind of like finish fixing the brand, release the website. There will be blogs, there'll be pre-recorded content as well as live content. So also, I am relaunching the podcast. So last year we did like 30 something episodes, and then I had to put it down for a minute. And so y'all know I put it down because y'all didn't see me going live and I just really wasn't around. And there was just so much happening at one time. And it's been absolutely amazing. Like, we've been able to get a lot of contracts. We have people who are pulling us into conversations around policy. And so if you aren't familiar, like, BBI really has 5 pillars that we're built on. So we're built on business acumen. We're built on mentorship. We're built on access to capital. We're built on patronage. So of course, that's like circulating the Black dollar. And then we're built on policy. And that was something that we were really working to like dig in, because when you come with being blackity black, they are not trying to have you at the table to discuss policy. And so, they want to talk about policy that's good for everybody else, but not policy that's good for our community. And our community is just so loving and so, free and open with how much we care about everybody else's plight, that you have strong Black voices who are out there, who are out there advocating for policy that isn't necessarily good for the Black community because it hurts somebody else, or they see the effects that it has on somebody else. And I'm not, I'm not against being, what's the right term that I want to use here? I'm not against empathy, but what I do feel is important is that we have to think through policies that are getting put out there in a way that is best for the Black community. And a lot of times we don't, because we're thinking about what's good for women, which translates into white women. We're thinking about what is good for the LGBTQ, whatever other alphabets there are out there now. We're thinking about what's good for them. We're thinking about what's good for the brown community. And we try and lump that Black and brown together. And oftentimes, because our statistics are really similar, but our histories and our circumstances under why those statistics are like that are really not the same. And so also they have a different type of culture. And so, then we can start getting into the difference between race and ethnicity and nationality, which funny enough, Cardi B kind of, highlighted recently. And those are important conversations to have, but it does make a difference when we're discussing like things that affect our community versus things that may affect the brown community. And so be very clear that they go hard for their stuff, and that they do not have the same type of attack on creating something that is for their community like the Black community does when we create something for me. I talked about that when I created BBI. Out here in Denver, there is an organization called Mi Casa. Mi Casa is very clearly for Hispanic people. And when I had the Black Business Initiative, it was like, oh, well, is it for other people besides Black people? Like, no, it's not. It's for Black people. So, getting that pushback has always been one of the barriers and challenges to the Black Business Initiative, because I don't bend on that. So even if I have someone who's willing to pay for services, or we have people who have occasionally paid for tickets to get in something, everything is blackity black. It's the Black Boss Summit. It's Black Capital. It's the Black this. It's the Black that. So if you're a brown person or a white person or whoever else that wants to come in, like, we're not at the door locking you out. It's not necessarily like that type of information, but the environment that we're creating is just for our community, and we're unapologetic about that. And when we are unapologetic about that, we get a lot of pushback. So, hey, But anyway, so just recognizing that we have been kind of digging our claws into policy. We got a new office space down on Welton. I think I mentioned that. I think actually my last video I was with Theo and we were at the office. And so we have that office space down there. We have been working on how we get Black contractors on all the development that is happening here in the city. We are working on getting our services provided for as free as possible. So we've been working on quite a bit. I also have some personal changes happening inside my own life, and I try to be pretty transparent about those things. However, this is not necessarily a platform for like just digging into Jice's life, but that will lead me to my next one, which is that I do now have my Grind with Jice up and running. So if you want to subscribe to Grind with Jice and kind of dig into some of the other things that I talk about, I'm on here all the time advocating for our community. But the other side of me, I have another side of me. I am a mom of 3. I homeschool my kids. I have a real estate business. I do have the Black Business Initiative is an actual business. It's a for-profit organization. It's a social enterprise, which I did found and which I am the CEO or the CVO of. And so I have other things that like other dynamics to me, other pieces to me. And so the Grind with Jice platform is more around like productivity and like being a mompreneur and other things like that. So feel free to go over there. I am not drinking tonight. I actually am not even doing anything at all tonight, y'all. I am last year at New Year's, I was building my vision board. And so I actually have my new vision board already posted up right here because I did it a couple of days ago with a girlfriend of mine. And so I'm just chilling. I'm not doing a single fucking thing. I'm chilling. All right. So what I told y'all about CT and Shay, I told y'all about some of the changes with BBI, the Grind with Jice, you can go there. Now, if you are in Denver, we have 2 programs that are getting ready to start like immediately. So one is our mastermind program. So we are taking a really small cohort. So if you are a business owner in the Denver area and you are interested in that, I will drop the link in there. But we really want to dig into your business model, help you get to the next step. So this is a 6-month program. It does have a very nominal fee. We cannot make it any cheaper, but we also have a couple of scholarships available if you need that. So I will post that information as well. And then we have our Jumpstart Your Biz boot camp. And so, BBI actually got started by running a business boot camp. That was the very first workshop ever that we did, that we launched out, was a workshop on how to build your business. So we are doing that again. And we will be taking 30 entrepreneurs, and that one is for free. So that is a free 4-week boot camp that will help you launch your business for 2020. Now, that is going to come in March, but you can start signing up because it fills up. And once it's full and it won't come back until October. So I cannot take more than 30 entrepreneurs, guys. Can't do it. So I'm not watching I don't even have cable. I'm not watching nobody. I might be watching the back of my eyelids. Actually, I got invited to a friend's house. I may go out. I'm not certain, but I really don't have any plans. I promise you. I am, I don't want to say I'm boring, but like, I'm not really a party person. So I am not like, that's not my scene. All right. So then the last thing before I jump into this, talking about Black leadership for 2020, is Detroit. So some of you may know that we opened up a event hall in Detroit. So if you are in the Detroit area and you are looking for a venue, you can support that venue and you can rent out that space. And it is called At the Point. So we have that, but we will be there in, I believe it's February, and we will be hosting we're going to be hosting a workshop. It's going to come back to me what we're hosting. We are hosting the Game of Real Life. There we go. We're going to be hosting the Game of Real Life in Detroit. So I'm really excited about that. When I brought that out here to Denver, it was really popular. It got a lot of like really great feedback, and it's going to be a dope event. So all of that is going to be coming out. You'll be able to go online. You'll be able to get all the information. And I think that's it. All right. So let's talk about it. Does my business school involve technology? I don't know what you mean. Like, if you want to open up a business in the technology field, then yes, because we will help you develop your business model for whatever field that you're in. So, yeah, I mean, you can hit me up if you want to clarify that question. But if you're asking what I think you're asking, yes, we can help you if you want to get into the technology field. All right. So, I don't know what new cons is. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on with Black leadership. So I'm not gonna lie, y'all. So first of all, the first thing that I really have been struggling with is around what we consider leadership. But I had, because sometimes I look at people and I'm like, y'all's not leaders. But I had to actually kind of take that back, because at the end of the day, when people are following you and they're listening to you, then you kind of like are a leader, right? So, now the question is whether or not you're a good leader or a bad leader. I mean, Hitler was a leader, right? And so leadership is like really broadly defined. And oftentimes entrepreneurs are looked at as being leaders because they are already kind of like busting out of the norm. They're kind of out into a different type of atmosphere. They're not doing the traditional thing or the typical thing. And so oftentimes entrepreneurs automatically get looked at as leaders because they are doing things that take risk and leadership and innovation and problem solving and a lot of the same traits and things that you expect for people who are leaders to actually be doing. And so the thing that I see that oftentimes hurts us is the fact that we have ego problems like no other. And I think sometimes we get these ego problems because we are not even putting things into context or perspective, right? And so the internet has allowed us to do that. Like, you get online and you got somebody who's got 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, 100,000, a million subscribers, something like that. And it's just like, oh my God, this person they're a leader. They're an influencer, right? And that's like kind of the new term. They're an influencer. But okay, let's take 1 million subscribers. There's 350 million people, right? So you are like less than what you have 0.03% of the population that knows that you exist. I mean, we have to put some things into perspective, I think, at times. And what I see happening in our community is that these people who are building these platforms, oftentimes because they are kind of going against the traditional grain or whatever the case is that they have these egos that then make them appear to be experts when they're not experts. And I think that's really dangerous. And so then you begin to see this kind of like back and forth. Well, actually, let me take that back. Let me walk that back a little bit. Sometimes they could be experts. They can be. But all of that to say, they have this back and forth banter, and I feel like it starts to get in the way, right? And I really don't want to do a whole lot of name dropping, but I just feel like it gets to be ridiculous because some of these platforms are big enough to like really create dangerous impact. You have people, and I think this channel is small enough that I could be like, I can name drop a little bit, right? Without like making any real waves, because that's like the first thing is this whole clout chasing thing. You start dropping names and then, we got a whole nother, issue or whatever. Right. So like take Oprah, for example. Now, Oprah has a amazing global platform. And so then when she started calling out people in this Me Too movement, right. And only calling out certain people, right? Those things are problems. But you have people who are more, centrally located or whatever. So I've been watching this whole situation with like Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell, attacking Boyce Watkins are attacking Dr. Claude Anderson. You have Tariq Nasheed, they're attacking him, he's attacking them. You have these names. You have Boyce Watkins, Umar Johnson, like you have these names that circulate pretty widely inside of the Black community. And in addition to providing some, the things and the insight that they put out and do for themselves, they go in and they start attacking each other. And it really detracts from the messaging because it's like the low-hanging fruit. I talked about this before. The low-hanging fruit that we have inside of our community is ridiculous. It's like we talk about attacking white people, we talk about attacking systems, we talk about that, but we don't really do that. We actually really just turn that energy in and attack each other on how each other is dealing with the system. So I might be dealing with the system in XYZ manner and you dealing with the system in ABC manner. And instead of talking about or continuing to attack the system, we decide we don't like that. So now we finna just go ahead and attack each other. It is the most ridiculous thing that I have seen. And then what happens is, because I just watched it, like I watched um the type of comments and the back and forth from people who at the end of the day should just know better. They should just know better, right? I refuse to go back and forth with like anybody. It doesn't even make any sense. It takes away from the energy, right? And we have to recognize sometimes that we only have but so much energy in a day. And so, why would I use up the limited amount of energy that I have when I'm supposed to be attacking a 500-year-old system and then I'm going to turn that around on you? It just makes no sense. So, to me, I think that it becomes a little bit ridiculous because it's all this name dropping, it's this continuous attack, and then it just gets tiresome. Like for those of us who are really out here doing the real work, it gets really tiresome. And so that's one of the first things that I really want to highlight is like who's actually out here doing work, because YouTube, Facebook, Instagram have allowed for people to become talking heads without doing the work, right? So I'm about to use myself as an example in this because I have been asked how come I dropped off when I was coming on regularly, because I'm doing the work, right? I'm doing the work. I'm doing the work. I'm out here actually doing the work. It's only but so much of me. I have 3 children I have to give to. I have a household I have to take care of. I have businesses I have to take care of. And then I actually get out here and do work inside of the community. So when you go looking for me, you can actually find me at local events, inside of local workshops, inside of classes and workshops, bettering myself. And I'm just using myself as an example. There's a ton of other leaders that do this, but there is a whole lot of leaders who don't. Talking heads who just talk, and they may talk real well, but they're talking and they're not doing. And I think that we have to begin to assess that, because we need to start holding them to the same fire and the same level of accountability that they want to try and hold everybody else. So you'll get on as a talking head and talk about what somebody else ain't doing. And really the question should be turned back to them and say, what are you doing? Because if what you're doing is just talking and you're talking about bringing awareness and highlighting issues, like that's a part of what Black media should be doing. And then you got to get out there and do the work. So like, unless you're a journalist, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Okay. So I wanted to kind of talk about like doing versus being, right? And looking at leadership from a sense of what are they actually doing, and asking them that and holding that to a high level of accountability. If you're going to come out here in our community and you want people to donate to you, you want people to be on your platform, you want people to invest inside your venture, you want people to follow you, you want people to listen to you, you have to be able to actually get out there and get something done. What's the MS campaign? I don't know what that is, and I don't know what you're talking about. Don't mess with the X. So y'all gonna have to be more specific. Anyway, so make sure that we're out here actually doing things. And then here's the thing: we have to stop thinking that there's only one way to skin this cat called racism and skin this system. Like, this is a multifaceted, multi-layered system where pieces connect to other pieces, connect to other pieces, connect to other pieces, connect to other pieces. That is the realest way that I could put it. When you want to look at and you want to address one issue, is going to be tied to another issue, tied to another issue, tied to another issue. When you look across every single disparity that exists, there are multiple layers of disparities that exist within there. So just like you can tie prison populations with reading levels, right? Okay, so now you're tying prison populations to education. When you want to tie education, you can't take education just by itself, because you can pinpoint education based off of people's family and what they've been able to accomplish, their zip code, their income level, right? That ties back into how nourished people are because whether or not your kid is properly nourished before they even go to school determines whether or not they can actually focus once they get there. It also depends on what medicines that you're giving them, what you have allowed people to inject your kids with, what you have allowed, what pills you've allowed your kids to be taking, right? So now we're talking about the big pharma and the medical industry, which we know there's disparities in the medical industry that exist beyond education level, income level, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We know that Black women have the highest maternity death rate across the board, despite how educated they are and despite how rich they are. Ask Serena Williams. So it's not one thing. It's so multi-layered. And then what happens is you get somebody who's like, this is the linchpin. There isn't a linchpin. There may used to have been a linchpin hundreds of years ago. There's not a linchpin anymore. It is a dynamic system that has several hundreds of years and is layered on top of each other. And it's fragile, but it's fragile and it's weak in certain places, but it's also very strong. And so we sit over here and we get into this space in this place where we have these leaders who are trying to tell you what the one linchpin is or what the one thing is that we have to focus on. And it's just absolutely not true. And you have people who have come up with these crazy ideas. There's some guy who was on Instagram today. I'm not even about to say his name because he was so well-intentioned and he was very respectful and there was really nothing wrong other than his idea was just absolutely crazy. He was like, let's support 10 businesses. He wants to get a platform together. He wants to put 200,000 businesses on a platform and support 10 of them every month, like a cash mob almost, to every business, support 10 businesses a month. I'm like, brother, like, 1,000 years later, we'd still be circulating, businesses. It just made no sense whatsoever, right? So, we get these people who are out here and they're trying, but they're not educating themselves. They're not educated enough. This brother hit me up and he's like, there's 500,000 Black-owned businesses. I'm like, actually, bruh, there's 2 million Black-owned businesses. So we already starting off with the wrong data. Like, I don't know how you want me to help you with that. We already starting off with the wrong data, right? And so, I've talked about this before because to Gerald's point, when we talk about destroying the entire system, I think we have to recognize how we think as people. So when you look at the system, you have to look at the fact that there are people who are going to have to infiltrate the system. First of all, we start off by calling all them people coons. Okay, now, don't get me wrong. Some of them are coons. But we don't know that all of them are, but I can tell you this much. We as a community are not grooming people to be infiltrators in the system. But when you want to pull down a system that's really strong, right, you got to attack it from the inside. You have to have some sort of a virus. You don't just bring something down without being able to attack it from the inside. So you have to have that virus. Even if you think about the World Trade Center, right, one of the whole conspiracy theories with the World Trade Center is that there wasn't something that came and hit it from the outside and it collapsed down. They're saying there was a plane that hit it, and then from the inside, there were bombs on the inside that then it blew up. So what happens is it took the whole building down, but the building collapsed not because of the one plane that hit it up top, but because from the bombs from the inside made it collapse down. So when we talk about this coonery, because you got people who are inside the system, what we should be doing is we should be grooming people to infiltrate the system because we need them on the inside of the system to help bring it down. Then you got to have the people who are on the outside who are attacking the system and who are agitating the system. That has to happen too. Then you have to have people who are rebuilding a system on the outside. Because if you understand anything about people, you cannot take anything away without replacing it. That's to your very core. That's to your very nature. So when you think about like a habit, if you think about smoking, when somebody has a habit of smoking, they cannot just stop smoking. What do? They replace it. So that's when you'll see people who start to vape. That's when you'll see, have you ever just seen somebody who used to smoke and now all the time they have a pen and they just be twirling it because they need to replace something that was always in their hand, right? So it's the same thing where you might have somebody who used to smoke and now they chew gum all the time, or they always have a bunch of mints. There's a process that we have to go through when we are removing something from ourselves. It has to be replaced with something else. And so we have to have people who are replacing, we have to have people who are attacking on the outside, and we have to have people who are a virus on the inside. So we have to have a multifaceted strategy, and all of those people are going to look different. The people who are assimilating on the inside to become that virus, to work their way up, to get into positions of power where they can make change, are not going to look like the same radical people. And I'm using the term radical very loosely because I have never really liked that term in the sense that they try to use it in a negative way. But they're not going to look like the radical people who are on the outside, who are yelling and screaming and being that squeaky wheel and actually physically attacking the system and tearing stuff down. And they are also not going to look like the people who look completely detached from all that bullshit. It ain't really bullshit, but you get what I'm saying. They ain't going to be attached to all that because they're over here building something. So when you check out of that system, can you check into a new system? We talk about that with the schools. We talk about that with the police system. We have no answer for the police system. At the very best, the Nation of Islam is the only group of us that have come up with some level of a strong replacement for the police system, to community police. But then I don't even know. I don't know. So if they do, inform me. But I don't even know that they have a system by which we can actually handle the rapists, the thieves, the murderers, the drug dealers, right? So we can go in and do a lot of preventative stuff, and we can go in and police our streets, and we can go in and give people proactive things to be doing. But what do we do with those folks who are not going to conform to that system and then are still doing, the most, right? Do they have a system for that? So we talk about getting rid of the police system, which absolutely needs to go, but we haven't talked about what would replace the policing system. So in your mind, as soon as something go wrong, what do? You be like, I'm gonna call the police. You can't even stand the police, but you still finna call the police. Because that's just how we think. There's nothing to replace that. And so we have to get into this place where we begin to think a little bit more critically and not always think that our way is the best way. So when I hear these leaders and they're like, I know best, and you ain't never done nothing, and you ain't done, ain't nobody else done, like, so out of all the 44 million Black people and out of all the multiple generations of people who have been fighting, you mean to tell me that won't nobody do nothing? I don't know why the chat won't let you post. So I don't know what's up with that. I don't see. I got my girl Nails and Glitter in here, but I don't see her taking out any of your messages. So I don't know what's up with that. But and thank you for the compliment. So we got to stop thinking about that. And then the other thing we need to be looking out for when we talk about our leaders in 2020 is the hypocrites and the narcissists. We need to look out for the hypocrites and the narcissists, y'all, like no other. We cannot let hypocritical people and narcissists, now, not perfection, because people are not perfect. Our leaders are fallible, and that's something that we have to really work on for ourselves. I try to give people the benefit of the doubt so often that is ridiculous. And matter of fact, it is probably one of my benefits and one of my downfalls all at the same time, because I recognize our humanity, and I will really try to work with somebody until I just really can't work with them no more. But the reality of it is that there's a difference between somebody making a mistake, somebody being wrong, and somebody just flat out being a hypocrite. And so we need to look at people who are just flat out hypocrites. We need to look at people who are narcissists and understand how narcissists gaslight, how narcissists will lie and manipulate facts and data in order to support their own version of a story. It is very important that we consider as leaders how we are going to really weed out that type of leadership, because at the end of the day, people who are narcissists and people who are hypocrites are really just there for them. And when I mean narcissists, I need to be clear, because if you're familiar with the term, you may think about somebody who's self-centered. But what you'll find is that in abusive relationships and in a lot of abuse type of situations, what most people are facing is a narcissist. That could be a narcissist parent, that could be a narcissist spouse, that can even be a narcissist child, right? And so if we can't recognize narcissism, and sometimes it is so difficult to recognize narcissism, the last 3 serious relationships that I was in were with narcissists. And I had to spend some time asking myself, what is going on that I am not seeing the narcissism until it's kind of deep. And that's because it's really easy oftentimes for narcissists to hide what they have going on if you don't understand narcissism and you haven't done any research on narcissism. So after like the third narcissist boyfriend I had, I was like, okay, let me understand this personality trait a little bit more deeply so that I can begin to see the clues and the cues early. So now as I walk around, and it's been a couple of years now, but it's like I walk around and it's a lot easier for me to spot narcissistic behavior. And it's very detrimental to us. So oftentimes, if you are a person whose parent abused you, or you have been in an abusive type of relationship, and not even just physically abusive, but you could have been in a mentally or an emotionally abusive relationship, it is most likely, if you begin to read up on narcissism and you assess that person, you will find that that person is going to fall into being a narcissist. They are incredibly mentally and emotionally abusive even before, or if they ever get physically abusive. But why is that important? Because our community has already been hurt from a mental and emotional perspective. This is the reason why we behave in the way we behave. And so if you think about the entire idea of the Willie Lynch syndrome, it is all based around narcissism. It is the idea that you can pit these people by making them feel like they are better than somebody else, and then having fed them these this misinformation, having connected these dots that don't really connect, all of these pieces, and you feed that to both sides. And now you've got two people who are deadlocked in mentally to a narrative and a story that's not true, and they are willing to do anything to protect that narrative. So narcissism is a lot of how we have been abused mentally and emotionally through the slavery process into Jim Crow and so on and so forth. And so we see that still rearing its head inside of a lot of our relationships, and we don't need to have that inside of our leadership. So that's really important. And then we also need to stop having a lack of research. Like, I just don't even know how else to say that. Like, we got people who don't do research, just get on, be talking, spin stuff however they want to, connect dots to create their story, but it ain't like the story, it's just the story that they connected. And then we sit over here and we eat all of that up. We just eat it. And we don't do any research. Like I just mentioned narcissism, and then I'm telling you, go research narcissism. Like, I'm not a narcissist expert. I'm just telling you that that's an issue, and it becomes evident when you learn about it. You have to go and learn about it. If you have, if you have dealt with any type of those types of relationships, you need to go and learn about it so you cannot deal with those relationships again, right? So it's that same type of thing in all cases. When I'm listening to Antonio Moore or Yvette Carnell, if I'm listening to Boyce Watkins, if I'm listening to Umar Johnson, if I'm listening to Tariq Nasheed, if I'm listening to Les Brown, if I'm listening to Tony Robbins, the list can go on and on because I listen to a lot of people. I take in a lot of information. And if something strikes me, I will go and look it up. If they tell me a fact and I'm like, that's interesting, I'm going to go and do some research. We got to get to a place where we are thinking freely and not just in this group think that can be easily led like sheep down the path that somebody wants us to go down, because everybody has an agenda. Everybody has an agenda. So you think somebody's agenda is just for the Black community, but everybody has an agenda. You got to assess that. And so the last thing is that we have to stop learning from leaders or accepting leadership that's not actually learning. So just like I mentioned about holding them accountable, we also need to find out, like, not only what they're doing, but what they're learning. One of the questions that I ask almost every person that I get to come into contact with that has influence or stature, that is famous or any of that. When I interviewed Karen Civil, or not, I didn't interview her, but when I had Karen Civil at my summit and I had an opportunity to ask her, one of my first questions to her was, who are you learning from? I asked David Banner that. Who are you learning from? Although David Banner will post a lot of what he's learning. He posts books he's reading. He posts stuff about his mentors and things like that. But like, what's the last book that your leaders have read? right? Like, what's the last, who else are they learning from? Ask those questions, because it's important to know what information they're soaking in and then regurgitating. What information or what sources are they looking at before they come out here as a talking head and just start telling you a whole bunch of stuff when they haven't necessarily done their homework or checked what they're supposed to be doing or any of that. So we have to spend some time holding our leadership accountable and asking them not what you're saying, but what are you doing? And so if I do have something, if I'm not disparaging any of our talking head leaders currently. I'm just throwing them out there. One of the things that I do like about Antonio Moore, when I listen to him, is he be coming with a lot of receipts. Now, I think he spends stuff in a way that isn't always the right way, but he definitely will come with the articles or the research or the report or the data or the charts. So that's something that I like, right? And then there are other folks who just kind of get out here and they talk about stuff, maybe because they're an expert in their field or whatever the case might be, but they're not backing up anything with like current data. A lot of this is them connecting dots and yada yada yada. So it's just, it's an interesting phenomenon, but we really have to start digging in and looking at our leaders. And the other thing is, and I'm gonna say this to just kind of like linchpin all of this together, or not linchpin, but cinch this all together with the idea that our leaders are human and they're fallible. I like the saying, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? There's actually, if I were to, all those people I listed, I disagree with a lot of stuff that they say, but I also agree with a lot of stuff that they say. So I listen and I think independently for myself, and I do research on the facts and the stuff that they throw out there. If you throw out an article or a report or whatever, like, I want to go out and I want to look at it. I want to read it. I want to skim it at minimum. I want to go and listen to, who said what or whatever the case is, so that I can form my own opinions. And so what happens is, and this is what I've seen in the comments, and this is kind of why I even wanted to come with this kind of a conversation, is because you just see people just jump on somebody bandwagon and just rise super hard, like this person is affecting your life in some kind of way. And so we're not even spending the time to think critically about what we need to be doing, how we need to be doing it, and who is leading us, and what their ability to lead actually looks like and actually is, right? And then also recognizing that when we're talking about these talking heads, we see a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of their life. If you see somebody on YouTube for an hour or 2 hours a day, out of their whole 24 hours in life, you are hearing and seeing what they want you to hear and see about their life. So that's, again, when I said, what are they doing? Because your works begin to show. Your works begin to show. And then that's when we have to start separating what an entrepreneurship leader looks like from a community leader, because they're both leaders, but they're leaders in a different way. You selling a product or a service is a different kind of leader than you affecting policy and change inside of our community. You educating, like, I'm an educator. I'm a for-profit educator. If you come and take my workshops, unless it's free, like I said, if you come and take my workshops cost. If you come to my events cost. So I am an entrepreneur. I am out educating. Then I have free mediums by which I provide education, such as this. But I'm out educating, right? That's one kind of leadership. It's not the same kind of leadership as someone who is out there doing. So when we talk about, we helped get this policy written, we helped push this legislation through, we helped change this system, we helped create something that allowed, that started closing a gap, or that started bridging, XYZ, that started providing more access, that started providing greater equity. All of those things are community-based, that are community driven, is a different kind of leadership than someone who is providing information as their vehicle, and in particular, information for a charge as a vehicle. There's nothing wrong with providing information for a charge if that person is doing the work to put together a course, a cohort, a downloadable digital download, whatever. But it is just a different type of leadership, and we have to make sure that we're assessing what they are doing, and if what they are doing actually creates structural change in the system, or if it really just benefits their pocket and it benefits you by way of you gaining additional knowledge. So Those are just some of the things that I'm hoping that we start looking out for as we head into the new year, as we look at these leaders and stop jumping on the bandwagon with these leaders. Stop worrying about their beefs. So and so, Tariq Nasheed and Antonio Moore is going back to, back and forth. Like, neither one of them is affecting your life in that kind of a way. Stop worrying about, which side of them you finna be on. And so we got to stop. We, as the followers, we have to hold them to a higher standard, and we have to not continue to fuel that. So when they're doing that back and forth bullshit like that, that's when their numbers start soaring. That's when they got way more people in the chat, way more views, way more of this, way more of that. It is a incentive for them to create that type of drama, which is why they create those titles, which is why they throw out those names like that, which is why they do all of that clout chasing. Even if they have some clout, then they chasing somebody else's clout, and then that person's chasing back their clout, and all of that. All that does is really just benefit them in a way that doesn't do us as a community any good. So with that said, y'all, I thank you for joining me tonight. I hope y'all have a fabulous new year. And I do want to let you know I'm going to go back in and I'm going to change up all these links. So make sure that you come back around so that you can get information on the programming that's going to start right at the top of the year. We have the boot camp that's going to start up first thing in March, but the registration is getting ready to open because it fills up. And once it's full, it's full. So you really got to be dialed in to get there. Don't forget that we will be having additional content creators coming on the channel. And if you're interested in being a content creator, you could let us know as well. But we will have additional folks coming on. I am going to do a show with my girl Shay, so y'all can meet her. And y'all going to see me again live on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And the podcast, it drops tomorrow. So that's the Boss Up with BBI. That drops tomorrow. And then last is, don't forget that if you do want to kind of connect with me on another type of level, you can definitely go over on that side to the Grind with Jice. And I'll drop that link in there as well. So that's just starting out. I'm just launching that, but I'm pretty excited about it. And I will see y'all in 2020. Peace.